If I'm at the range all day, I don't see anybody that practices well. I mean, nobody. If you want to get better, you have to have a good, solid plan. Arrive with a good, solid plan. Don't just rake and rip. You're going to get exercise, but you're not going to get better. You might even get worse. And there's so many books out there and YouTube videos about how to practice well. I try to drive it into my students, but God, I come out there some days and there's a guy that took a lesson a week ago and he's just beating ball after ball with his driver and not doing anything else and not getting better.
Hi, this is Charles Palmer from Naples, Florida, and I play at the Esplanade Golf and Country Club. This is Golf Smarter number 935.
The myths and misconceptions of keep your head down with John Marshall.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome to the Golf Smarter podcast, John.
Great to be here, Fred. I just discovered your podcast about a month ago, and I am the president of the Atlanta chapter fan club.
Thank you very much. And you're friends with Dr. Greta Anderson, who we love talking to. So you're both down there in Atlanta, and she told me that she was just talking about you, said that you discovered the podcast. And I'm like, well, let's get him on the show.
Yeah, we teach at the same place. We go to lunch a couple of times a year, and she's an awesome lady and a great teacher, too.
Yeah, she's a phenomenal human. Really like her. That's great.
Yep.
So you got your whole thing going, and I mean, you've been playing golf a long time, but as a younger man, you started out with long drive, or is it as a senior you started out with long drive competition?
Not even senior, super senior.
What is super? I don't even know it's super. It's like super salad. Do
you remember Remax World Long Drive Championship? Sure. Yeah. So back it was like Christmas Day of 2002, they announced that they were going to have a super senior division beginning in 2003, and it was for 55 and up, and I was about ready to turn 55. So just worked well, and I'd always been pretty long, so I just got the juices flowing. I got excited for the first time in many years. And long drive back in those days was like the U.S. Open. There was local qualifying and then regional, and I went to 8 local qualifiers and won them all and figured I was going to waltz all the way to the World Championship. And had a couple of episodes of, to put it mildly, choking, and I realized rolling the club face open a little bit and then trying to roll it closed, which I had been taught when I first started playing when I was 14 years old, did not work under the pressure of long drive. So
really? I
was hitting it a long way, but it would sometimes come down in the same state that I was standing in, but not always. So the worst thing that can happen in long drive, you get 6 balls, hit them in 2.5 minutes. If you don't get one in, you leave with the tail between your legs. And that happened twice, and the second one was really bad. So
is that what you call choking?
Yeah. And, sometimes it can happen just because your swing is off that day. But this was a legitimate choke. There's no getting around it. So I came home and I moped around for a month. And then I decided, well, I'm going to fix this. So I contacted Mike Austin, whom you know his name from Jacob Bowden.
Sure.
We talked on the phone. He had stopped teaching. He was like 95. He put me in touch with his protege, Dan Schauger, in L.A. I flew out to L.A., spent a couple days working with Dan, and he kind of gave me, it sounds weird, but he gave me permission to swing the golf club like I did naturally in terms of the club face. So instead of rolling it open, I kept it square throughout, and I never had a 6 and out again. I
Nice.
won some stuff, had a good time, made a
Great.
lot of friends, and
At what age were you doing this? That you started winning?
55,
Wow.
and I was flying at 310 then, and it was just with basically a standard length driver. I don't know where the 80 yards have gone since then, but they've disappeared a little bit. This aging process is cruel. There's no getting around that.
Yeah, but if all we have to do is complain about aging, we're well ahead of the game.
Absolutely. I totally concur. So I had a lot of fun, and I I had been teaching kind of informally before that, but the range that I went at, where I went to practice, people would watch me hit balls, and they kind of come up to me and say, "How does a runt like you do that?" So I would give informal lessons, and the guy that owned the range said, "You ought to be charging for this." So that's kind of where the teaching started, and I often think back to those early days, and if I could contact all those people that took lessons the first couple of years and I would say to them, "You deserve a refund. Give me your address and I'll mail you a check." But things have progressed over the years. I kind of think I'm doing pretty well with that. I was thinking the other day, there was a point where golf was starting to go downhill a little bit. Teaching was going uphill a little bit. I was trying to think of maybe what year they kind of crossed in the night. It's probably
when you say
7 or 8
going
years.
down. When you say going down, does that mean your score was going down? What are you referring
No,
to?
distance was going
Oh, your
down.
distance was okay.
Scores have kind of stayed the same because
That's nice.
I just keep moving forward like I
Good.
should be doing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I shoot my age pretty much every time I play, and have fun with my buddies.
So you're shooting in the mid 70s regularly.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. That's kind of where I was when I played college golf and high school golf, and you kind of reach your own level. I was never good enough at golf to do anything professionally, and that's why long drive was so much fun. I could do something on a bigger stage and be at least marginally successful. My last competition, I was on the tee. This was Remax 2010. I was on the tee with Rick Barry, whom I'm sure you remember because he
Golden
was
State
a
Warriors.
Bay Area icon, and
golf.
A lot of people
fanatic.
don't know this, but he won 2 World Long Drive Championships too in the older guys groups. So yeah, it was fun.
Fierce competitor.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that competition that was blowing about 25 in the face at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he was ripping these low draws that were probably getting 25 or 30 yards a roll, but none of us old guys hit at 300 that day. The wind was so strong. So anyway, we had fun.
Oh, that's okay. Then you win again. You're having fun.
Yeah.
You said you were a runt. How tall? I know you're going to say, "Well, I'm shorter now than I was then," but
and that's the truth.
So how tall are you?
I'm 5'10" now. I think I was 6 feet when I started. I weigh about 185, and everything is kind of sinking. You don't know what that's like because you're still young.
Oh no, I do. I'm having a lot of compression issues in my back, so I get it.
Yeah,
I totally get it.
Yeah. So I work out a lot and I try to stay strong, but boy, it's tough as you get older. But
yes, it is. Yeah,
no complaints.
No complaints. But tell me about your workout. What is it that you focus on?
I do cardio, I do weights, I do a lot of flexibility work, and just try to maintain my range of motion as much as I can.
If you could only do one of those 3, which would it be? Cardio, weights, flexibility.
Probably range of motion, flexibility. I do that every single day. Try to do cardio most days, and weights maybe 3 days a week.
Okay. And what is your cardio workout?
Elliptical.
Okay.
I've had, I ran marathons
Oh, wow.
40 years ago, and I've had 7 knee surgeries. So even walking is not particularly fun. Elliptical is perfect. You look
Yeah.
like you're in shape. I'm sure you do a lot of stuff too.
I never do. I'm not big on cardio.
Yeah.
And I've never really done weights at all. I
Yeah.
really focus a lot on my flexibility. My
Yeah.
cardio is in the swimming pool. I swim,
Yeah. That's fantastic.
which is
And
all resistance. And, you're not pouring sweat, which I love.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I mentioned to you being in San Francisco 3 years ago, and I went down to the waterfront one day, and there were people out there swimming in 60-degree water, maybe less.
Yeah. No, I'm a swimming pool guy. I
Yeah.
can't swim in dark water unless I'm wearing a
No.
mask and then I'm underneath the water. Yeah.
No Alcatraz to the shoreline swim for you.
No. I have friends, but not me. Not
Yeah.
me. No way.
Yeah.
So you runt like you. You're 5'10". You're still taller than I am, but you've always been a long hitter.
Yeah. I was a baseball player at like
Okay.
9, 10, 11, 12, and then and I was a good hitter, and all of a sudden somebody threw a curveball. I was going to be Mickey Mantle was in my wheelhouse. I was going to replace the Mick in center field, and I saw that first curveball, and I thought, maybe we ought to look into a different activity here. So moved over to golf, and
Where the ball wasn't moving at all.
the ball wasn't moving, and I don't want to say it was easy, but
No.
it was. I went from 0 to breaking 80 in 13 months in upstate New York. So something was working right, I
Yeah.
guess. I don't know.
Absolutely.
But then, I got to the 75 range and kind of found my level of achievement for golf. But I know a lot of people would like to shoot 75.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully what's working here is our sponsorships. And we're going to, I'd encourage people not to fast forward through them because this is part of how I make this thing work. So please stick around because we'll be back in a minute with more with John Marshall. John, you just mentioned to me, and I want to bring it up, that you've got some people that have been featured on the podcast here that you really admire the work that they're doing now, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. Who are we talking about?
Well, Scott Fawcett with Decade Golf and John Sherman with 4 Foundations of Golf, who wrote a wonderful book.
Yeah.
And he has a podcast too.
Yeah. No, they've both been on the show, right?
But I just think what they're doing can help any level of golfer, certainly elite players, but even 15, 20 handicappers to make sound decisions based on, as Scott Fawcett puts it, based on math and not on intuition. And I don't know if he mentioned this when he was on, but Stuart Sink, who was one of his early disciples, said, I finish rounds not fatigued because I don't have to think. I just do everything from a math standpoint. Of course, he was a Georgia Tech grad, so maybe that really fit in well with him. But
Right.
He said, I don't have to think. I look at the numbers. I realize what my dispersion is. I pick out a target that works with that dispersion. But the greatest thing to me about these two things is that we all beat ourselves up playing golf, and most people just have expectations that are totally unrealistic. And I'll say to my students sometimes, what's the average PGA Tour dispersion with the driver over the course of the year, all players? Far right miss, far left miss. So typically they'll guess 30 yards, and it's
Oh, no.
more than 75.
Sure.
And what's the average make rate in the PGA Tour from 8 feet? People will say 75% because they're watching golf every weekend and they're all making those, but it's 49. And people need to pat themselves on the back a little bit and not be so hard on themselves because, as Scott says, I keep going back to Scott, but I just love what he does. Golf is a shotgun, and it's not a sniper rifle, and we have to figure out what our dispersion is and plan accordingly. So I'll get off my decade golf soapbox here, but I just love this stuff.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Stuff. It's definitely worth going back and hearing Scott. He was on just recently, episode 930, back in January.
That's amazing.
He's great. He is, and he's passionate about it, and it makes so much sense.
Exactly. And he kind of came up with this from, according to what he says, from playing poker and just looking at expectations and using math and figuring out a way to maximize his chances of being successful. And you're not going to be successful every day, but what's the one thing I hear from all new students, typically the higher handicappers? I just want to be consistent. Can you help me be consistent? And I say, no, I can't. You're not going to be. Nobody is. And once you realize that, you got a chance of having fun playing the game. But God, who wants to, you don't want to beat yourself up all the time.
Yeah. I tell people when they tell me I want to be consistent, I'm like, well, tell me what scores you shoot. I'm always between 90 and 95. It's like, dude, you're consistent. Yeah. I mean, what is it that you want? You are consistent. Exactly. It's probably your short game can use some work, your putting, but it's also your approach to how to approach a golf course. It's not hitting golf balls is not going to make you consistent. It's how you play golf that's going to make consistency. That's my feeling.
You kind of led me into another area here. If I'm at the range all day, every day for weeks and weeks and weeks, I don't see anybody that practices well. I mean, nobody. And if you want to get better, you have to have a good, solid plan. Arrive with a good, solid plan. Don't just rake and rip, as I call it. You're going to get exercise, but you're not going to get better. You might even get worse. And there's so many books out there and YouTube videos about how to practice well. And I try to drive it into my students, but God, I come out there some days and there's a guy that took a lesson a week ago, and he's just beating ball after ball with his driver and not doing anything else and not getting better. And it's frustrating for me, and I try to talk it into him, but not too many people want to hear it. I do hit balls sometimes in between lessons, and I try to set a good example if anybody's watching me, but I don't know if it works.
So do you teach golf full time?
Yeah, I'm getting up in years, so I teach like 15 hours a week, something like that, and it takes me a half an hour to get to the golf course, half an hour back, and when I get home, I'll spend 20 minutes per student writing a lesson summary, which I'll email to them. I'll do voiceovers on their videos, and I'll email that to them. Okay. So if I do 3 or 4 lessons a day between the drive and then the follow-up stuff, it's a 6 or 7 hour day, which is all I want, basically. But it's a good situation. I love it.
And then it's nap time.
Then it's nap time. It's always nap time.
It's always nap time. Have you ever had any instances during your playing career where you had to take some time off due to injury?
Other than I mentioned I've had 7 knee surgeries, so that's required some time off. But in
Yeah.
terms of expected injuries with a golfer back, lower back, upper back, not really.
Oh, lucky
No, I
man.
think I've been fortunate. I think I have decent flexibility
Yeah.
still,
And you
but
think that's more of the flexibility, or that it's more about the weight exercise, the
maybe a little bit genetics, and
and
then
genetics, of course.
yeah, and then trying to stay in shape and
Well, I bring it up, and I'm curious to get your advice. I got an email from a listener this morning who, in his early 60s, he just had back surgery, and he's like, how long do I need to take off, and do I need to change my swing now? Should I go stack and tilt? I'm like, everything I've heard about stack and tilt is not good for your back. I'd love to throw this out to a golf instructor. It's like, for somebody in their, early 60s, back surgery, needs to make changes, not swing as hard as he has been. What would you recommend?
Well, I hate to disagree with the affable host here, but I'm actually, in the right circumstances, a big stack and tilt fan.
You are.
And I think a lot of people have back problems when they side bend a lot in both directions. And you may or may not know this, but I was like everybody my age, I was a big Nicklaus and Palmer fan growing up, and when I look at my swing on video, there's times when I kind of throw up, but I do have a very steady head.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you can maintain a steady head in the golf swing, both back and down, is by side bending left in the backswing, side bending right in the downswing. Not a lot, but a little bit. But that's the only way you can stay centered and tilt your shoulders a little bit. If you look at, sometimes I say to students, what do you think of, older guys, I'll say, what do you think of Arnold Palmer's golf swing? And they'll say, well, he did this funny thing here at the end, and of course he did, but everything he did before that was just mechanically perfect, basically, in terms of tilting and staying centered. His dad and Nicholas's teacher, Jack Grout, both of them said, put your hands on the club properly, don't move your head, and swing as hard as you can, and we'll figure out how to hit it straighter later on. And then
it's fine for a kid in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah, or 8 and 10 like they were.
Yeah, exactly.
But 50 years later, the people at TPI, Titleist Performance Institute, documented that that's absolutely the perfect approach.
Wow.
Whatever the swing speed that you start with is, to a great extent, is what you're destined to have the rest of your life. So I'm not going to tell a 70-year-old to come out of their shoes and try to get 120 mile an hour club head speed. But for a young kid who's got some athletic ability, God, go after it. And you stand on the range sometimes giving a lesson, and you'll hear a well-meaning dad in the spot behind you saying stuff to his son or daughter, and I think to myself, you're setting this kid back, like 20 years.
The worst instructor in the world is a parent.
Yeah.
Or a spouse.
Yeah. Keep your head down. Keep your head down. Worst piece of advice in the history of golf.
And all right. Well, hang on to that thought, because we're going to discuss why that is right after this break. All right. We hear it all the time. I lifted my head. Or you hear from down the bay, another bay in the driving range, keep your head down. Keep your head down. You're saying bad advice.
There's a difference between keeping your head down and allowing your head to rotate. The two of the examples that I use with students who, they finish their swing and they're still staring at where the ball is. First of all, you're completely stalling your rotation. Secondly, you'll end up with a chiropractor on speed dial very quickly. But if you look at David Duval and Annika Sorenstam, their heads were gone way before impact. And I say gone, they weren't looking down at the golf ball. They were rotating.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful thing to do because, where's power come from in the golf swing? Rotation. And you just really kind of unlock yourself in terms of being able to rotate more thoroughly and create more power. So whenever a student shows up, doing this and they're still looking at the ground and their hands are up here, I'm thinking to myself, this is not working. We're going to make some changes here.
Yeah. I mean, how many yards are we losing if by having our hands up there and our heads still down?
Hard to quantify, but a decent amount, no question about that.
Right.
Yeah, but then the other factor is hurting yourself too, which you will if you do that long enough. Physically
hurt yourself.
Physically hurt your back.
Right.
Yeah, you're really stressing the back when you do that. If you let keep rotating, you're going to be kind to your body, I think, doing that, but not keeping the head down forever.
What about tennis elbow? Now, this is something that, there's golfer's elbow and there's tennis elbow. I've been dealing with tennis elbow. And I've not even asked anybody, what might have caused that, other than being at my desk all day? Is it the golf swing that is impacted that?
Well, I'm not an orthopedic surgeon, but I would say so many.
But you act
so
like one
ranges,
on TV. Yeah.
So many ranges nowadays are mats only just because it's less expensive. And, if you're trying to lean the shaft and compress the ball and maybe the mat's been there for 4 years and it's getting worn and there's no cushion, you start beating on those with irons after a while and that the elbows can start to hurt. And those are, as it's tough to get rid of that. You really have to take some time off.
Yeah, I'm taking like 3 months off, and I'm realizing I've got a 10-year-old mat back here I'm hitting off of.
Yeah, and that could be it right there.
It's my own mat. But I think that it was on a driving range before it was given to me.
Got it.
Yeah, so it had some mileage on it already. And I thought, oh boy, this mat must be getting old because I'm seeing all the remnants of the mat on the bottom of my clubs. It's like, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. My arm's killing me. It's probably from hitting on this mat.
I think so.
Time to get a new mat.
Maybe get a new mat and see if that helps the elbows.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Great advice. Thank you.
When you stop and think about maintaining a grass surface range with all the divots that are being taken, it's a pricey situation. The place I teach, they used to use grass on the weekends, and they stopped that 5 years ago. So it's only mats now.
And plus, when you're hitting on a driving range that's grass, most of the time it's very sandy.
It's what?
There's a lot of sand that they're using to, and so it's not really grass. So it's hard to get a good sense of what you're doing when you're hitting the ball. That's what I've found.
A lot of people can hit the ground an inch and a half behind the ball on a mat and still get a serviceable shot. And they think, well, I'm really doing well. And they get out on the golf course and it doesn't work quite as well.
I can't believe how many golfers that I've come across that are lifetime golfers that when I say, okay, so if the ball is here, where should the bottom of your swing be? Thinking that the swing is a circle. So there's a bottom to that swing, bottom of the circle. Where in relation to the ball should it be? Should it be, 3 inches behind the ball, right at the ball, in front of the ball? And I can't believe how many people are shocked to hear that the bottom of the swing should be in front of the ball, past it as far as where your swing is. They're like, well, what are you talking about? It's like, no, you hit the ball first, then you hit the ground. That's how you get a good divot. That's also how you get your compression on the ball. Oh,
At the risk of antagonizing you further,
go for it. You're never coming back on this show again anyway.
this is what stack and tilt is all about: is bottom point control. And when you're not moving laterally in either direction, and you're right on top of it, your bottom point's going to be in the same place all the time. And every person that shows up for a lesson to me is totally different. And I have a bag full of tools that I use and I'll pull out hopefully the right tools for the individual's issue. And if somebody is swaying off the ball in a big way and I can see they got 95% of their weight on the outside of their trail foot, I'm not gonna say stack and tilt. I'm just gonna say, let's kind of stay centered a little bit more. I've got a video that I send to a lot of serial swayers that's of two great LPGA Tour players, and at 4 different places in the swing it shows weight distribution percentages. 50-50 in the setup. At the top of the backswing, 50-50, which shocks everybody.
Wow.
70-30 lead foot at impact, and then 98-2. But there's kind of a buzz term in recent years in golf instruction where people talk about going into your trail foot and not onto your trail foot, and there's a big difference there. Do you understand what I mean?
No, please explain.
Yeah. You're keeping your weight on the inner half of your trail foot in the backswing rather than getting it totally on it. So if you look at Hogan top of backswing, Nicklaus top of backswing, most all good players, there's not a ton of weight over there. There really is not. And that's why I think stack and tilt can be valuable for the right person.
For the right person. Okay.
The right person.
I'll buy that.
Not everybody.
Not everybody.
No. Everybody. I played golf out in Vegas a couple of years ago, and I met this guy who was the director of golf. I won't mention the name of the club, but he'd been teaching Fred Couples for 40 years, and I think to myself, what are you telling Fred Couples? I did say that to him, and he said, everybody has an issue. Everybody has an issue. And I didn't ask him what Couples' issue was, but
oh man,
I don't think he would have told me.
Well, that's different.
Yeah, I think we'd all like to have Fred Couples' issues, right?
I have the issue of the name Fred, so.
Yeah. All Freds are good guys and talented. Yeah.
Better Fred than dead. All right, let's take one more quick time out here, another 60 seconds, and we'll continue on with John Marshall. John, I'm really curious to see if you can help go through a long drive swing, not competition, break it down of what you're feeling in your process, your setup, your thought process, and what it feels like when you're competing and going for as much distance as you possibly can, and accuracy.
Well, I certainly struggled with the accuracy part initially, and when I did this for 8 years. I basically didn't play golf at all, maybe 10 rounds a year. But I would practice, especially leading up to a competition. I'd hit 100 drivers a day in addition to working out a lot. And, you just kind of train yourself to maximize your speed as best you can. I've always done the Dr. Scholl's foot spray on the club face to make sure I'm at least somewhere near the center of the face, because that's a huge deal. But it was always, I don't want to say it was easy, because nothing's easy related to golf or long drive, but it was fun. once I started figuring the club face out too, and you and I joked a week or so ago about the Manuel de la Torre guy who said toe up and toe down up here. No, no. And I'm never critical of other teachers, but I'd like to have him find out someone who agrees with him nowadays on that. Okay. That doesn't work. Doesn't work. No.
And that's what I love about doing this podcast is somebody's going to come on one week and say, this is the only way you're going to have consistency and distance. And someone will come on next week going, no, doesn't work that way.
No, well.
So that's a warning to all listeners. Please, if you don't like what you hear on this show, come back next week. You come back next week because you're going to hear something different.
I mentioned starting at 14. Are you about ready to come back on now, or not? Out of break, or?
Oh, we're in, man.
Oh, you are. Oh,
yeah,
my bad.
No. We're. This is part of the show. Surprise.
So when I was starting at 14, I took 2 lessons, and the guy said, when the shaft's parallel to the ground, halfway back, toe up, I want 90% of your weight on your right foot, and then I want you to shift your weight to the left and roll your hands closed, and square the club face and hit it a mile dead straight. And I tried that and realized it didn't work, so I kind of worked things out on my own. I still rolled the club face open a little bit, but not to that extent. But so shaft parallel to the ground, halfway back. Club face should be parallel to the spine angle. Why is this a square club face? Because if you think of the arc of the club going back, when I'm in that position with that club head tipped forward, it's perpendicular to my path. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
That's dead square.
And I'm loving hearing this. Keep going.
And then at the top of the backswing, I want a flat left wrist. I'm going to have a flat left wrist at impact. If I've got a flat left wrist up here, I don't have to do anything. And this is a little harder to understand or visualize, but I want to have the club face parallel to my left forearm at the top of the backswing. I'm a right-handed golfer. That may be tough to visualize there, but definition of square club face over the last 10, 12, 15 years has changed dramatically.
For the better?
For the better, yeah. Totally, yeah. What are you doing when you're in positions like I talked about? Every golf swing requires timing, but you're chopping a lot of that need for timing away. If I'm not rolling the club face open and closed, that's one factor I don't have to worry about. And I don't hit it as far as I used to by any means, but I mean, I don't curve the ball 2 inches typically. Everything is pretty much dead straight because I zero out my path and zero out my club face. So ball just goes straight and doesn't curve at all. I can make it curve if I need to, but
yeah, that was going to be my question. Do you have the ability to shape the shots if you need to?
It's harder to do nowadays with the technology of the golf ball. But yeah, I can still do it. Yeah, it's not going to curve as much as it did with a balata ball 30 years ago, but you can still curve it. I'm sure you can curve it. No?
I mean, like my drives, I either hit a small fade or straight. It's like I haven't played in months, so I'm like, what do I do? But I just in the last couple months that I was playing, I was just starting. I'm a right-handed golfer. I brought my left hand a little bit rotate clockwise
to the right.
Yeah.
Yep.
On the grip, and I was starting to hit a draw for the first time. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And then my arm started hurting, and I'm like, is that why my arm was hurting? Because I moved my hand on the club? No, it's
Now,
because I'm
when you
practicing on
say
an old mat.
when you say you hit a draw, is it starting out right of the target and then moving back to the target, or starting out left?
No, it's starting where I'm aiming, and then going a little bit to the left. It's not
Gotcha.
just going
Okay.
hard left. It's
Yeah.
you can see the ball flight going up, and then it's starting to move a little bit to the left, which is like,
I
I'm hitting a draw, yay! After all these years, it's like, really, do I want to do that?
Yeah, I had a student last year who was a lifelong slicer and not a real talented golfer, and we're working on grip and club face control, and he's got this big out to in path, and he hits this pull hook that Marlon Perkins couldn't find, and he just lit up and said,
You mean the guy from Time?
"Oh my God, I hit the first draw of my life," and he was just so giddy, and I didn't want to break it to him that you're never going to find that golf ball, but it's all about. You probably know this from talking to instructors, but the longer the club, the greater the impact of the club face.
Yeah.
With driver, it's 85% of where the ball's going is club face. With a wedge, probably more like 50% of where it's going. But controlling the club face is what golf is all about. I'm a huge Victor Hovland fan, and he talks about, when people ask him about why he's so successful, he says, I have a very, very stable club face. And I don't open it, I don't close it. It's always square all the way through here. Works pretty well for him.
Yes, it does. The problem is we go, I saw Victor Hovland hit shots on TV. I can do that. And you just go out to the golf course, not even practice it. You just go to the golf course going, I'm gonna channel Victor Hovland today. It's like, no, you're not.
Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
No.
Don't
No.
even. I saw this shot on TV. I can do this.
Yeah, exactly. I so frequently I say to students, you don't have any idea how hard the golf courses are that they're playing, and you have no idea how good they are. Even if you watch them, you don't have any idea how good they are.
And you're talking to a guy who's a scratch golfer, and they still don't have the clue.
No, exactly. Well, you know who Larry Nelson is?
No.
3-time major champion. He's a local Atlanta guy. He won 2 PGAs in the U.S. Open, but I remember him saying one time that the difference between an 18 and scratch is smaller than the difference between scratch and tour player.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, those guys with the USGA index would be +6, +7, +8. I mean, it's
Tiger was a +10 at one point.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're good. They're talented, and they're good, and but they also have a 75-yard dispersion with their tee shots from 120 yards. They average roughly 23 feet, according to Scott Fawcett, and but they pick the right targets. They understand their dispersion. They're dialed in on how far they hit each club. They have from equipment standpoint, they have a lot of advantages over us normal people, but they're really good. They're really good, and that's why they make a lot of money. Yeah,
well, they try, or they go play for the Saudis and make a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's I decided to actually at the first week of January. I decided I'm going to go on strike. I mean, I'm a huge golf fan. I have been my whole life, just like you. But I said, I'm going to go on strike and I'm not going to watch. And I didn't watch the first 2 weeks. And then last week, I didn't watch, this is at Palm Springs. I didn't watch Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but then Sunday I wake up and I realize what's going on with Nick Dunlap. And my best friend and I go to the NCAAs every year because we love college golf, and we watched him play last year. So you know the guy's good, but I had to watch that, and I mean that was an amazing story. So
amazing story.
Yeah, and I'm sure Liv has probably come after him. I know he's on the PGA Tour now, but I'm sure they've come after him.
But didn't you love how he said the next week he's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to play on the tour event this week. I want to go home."
Yeah.
Good for you, kid.
That's kind of a mature decision right there, and I think he wanted to go back and do the right thing with his coach and his teammates, and very admirable. Yeah, I'm a fan.
Absolutely. So you're teaching now. Do you teach online or do you only teach in person? What do you?
Only in person, but I'm actually thinking about trying to do a little bit more of that. I have in the past informally, but I may try to set up some kind of a system to do that. I've already proven to you that I'm a master of technology. So
we're here. You're doing it. You figured it out. How do people get in touch with you if they'd like to get a lesson?
Website is jmlongdrive.com.
JM?
Yep.
jmlongdrive.com.
Phone number and email address are on there, and love working with everyone. Well,
I really enjoyed working with you today. This has been awesome. Thank you.
You're very kind, Fred. It was fun for me too, and hope our paths cross again. Maybe you said you're coming to Atlanta soon. Maybe we can break bread, or I can give you a golf lesson if you have a little time.
That's great. Thanks so much for being on today, John.
I enjoyed it immensely, Fred. Thank you for having me.
Well, I was wondering when AI was going to start having an impact on this podcast, and it has arrived. After recording this interview with John, the platform I use called Riverside FM, and if you're a podcaster, I'd seriously recommend it to you. They offer a new AI service where it reviews the entire interview, then gives a summary of the conversation, and provides bullet-pointed takeaways on the topics that we covered during the interview. So beginning today, that will be included in the show notes and at our blog post for you to review before or after you listen. Would love your feedback on whether or not this is at all helpful. This week's Golf Smarter ambassador is Charles Palmer of Naples, Florida, where he plays at the Esplanade Golf and Country Club. Why don't you become one of our ambassadors? Then you can take advantage of getting a free gift. Unless you think having a free podcast is the gift. Okay. But actually, you'll get a choice of 3 great gifts to choose from. Like Charles, you can choose Tony Manzoni's video of The Lost Fundamental, or you may want a glove and glove storage compartment from redroostergolf.com. And your third choice is an 8-pack of Flight Path golf tees from flightpathgolf.com. All you have to do is introduce an upcoming episode by telling us where you're from and where you play. Just write directly to me, and I'll send you simple instructions on how to record. Check out today's show notes to find the links about each gift that you have to choose from. If you have any questions, comments, especially about our AI-generated show notes, or suggestions for upcoming episodes, write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com or click on the Hey Fred button when you visit golfsmarter.com.